All right, you lead, I'll follow.
What's going on, people? We're here once again and grateful to be able to share a bit of time with each and every one of you. I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about tonight because I think what has caught us has caught so many. And we believe that by the time that we finish, that we're going to share some insights that will be very, very beneficial to helping you to leverage versus lose. We want to leverage versus lose. And so we can say out of the gate, go ahead and click that like and share. And if you don't mind, um, even text a few people that might benefit, that might benefit from what we're going to talk about tonight. What are we going to talk about? It's right there in the bottom of the screen. We're talking about different strokes. You remember that television show?
Loved it.
Why did you love it so?
What you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about, Willis? One of our folks at our church is forever coming up to me saying, "What you talking about, Willis?" And I'm like, "Girl,
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah, she does it regularly."
Love that show.
All right. So was it Gary Coleman as to why you liked it, or was it Todd Bridges? Which one were you?
I'll be honest, it was just good to see Black people in shows.
It was good to see Black people in shows.
I mean, I recognized that it was an opportunity. I mean, way back then that it wasn't commonplace. And so I think that might have been, I don't know.
Then it was okay. Well,
I don't remember it being like theater or the most invigorating show. But anyway, I don't know. Did you watch it?
I watched it. Okay. I watched it.
Yeah.
And I was a fan. I enjoyed it. I think at certain points they needed some better writing, but
right. It was kind of predictable now that we think about it. But back then it was good.
So we're going to talk about differences tonight, right? And whether or not we're being empowered by our differences or whether we are being devastated by our differences. Now, many of you who know us well know that there is an infamous difference that my wife and I have figured out how to coexist with. And that is the fact that she is a Dallas Cowboy fan and I am a New York Giants fan.
And both of us are pretty diehard.
Yeah. And, when I look at other couples and see them doing the fandom in agreement and they're rocking the jerseys and even have the kids dressed up in it, oftentimes, I'll be honest with you, I'm jealous because I wish that we had that kind of symmetry in our camp, but we don't.
We don't. And I feel like our kids have been robbed. Like I feel like they actually hate football season. Like Carmen used to get stressed and tensed out because she knew what was coming.
Yeah. So she wanted to be able to be on Team Starks and Team Starks be together.
Yeah.
And my wife is she's pretty entrenched. Ironically, she says it's because of her daddy. And
I was born like this.
And I'm entrenched because that's just how I flow. I've been doing it all my life. And somehow or another, we found a way to coexist. We found a way to still sleep in the same bed, eat the same food, take the same vacations together, in spite of the fact that in September and November, it gets tense around this camp.
Yeah.
And so
I was concerned actually because I didn't know if my father was going to approve of Adrian because we are just that strong. And I told Adrian when we first met and we learned this about each other, I said, whatever you do, don't talk football.
Right.
Which was kind of hard because my dad's a diehard Aggie fan. And I think that's the only reason why we are together.
Well,
he remembered you from your quarterbacking days at A&T. But
Believe it or not,
we're
we're
here.
not just talking about football tonight. Although that has been our introduction into this particular time where we're talking about different strokes. But again, those of you who follow us, you know that for a first lady, a very genteel kind of person, at times she gets raggedy raw about the Cowboys, and we endure. We have not been devastated by it, but have actually found a way to be empowered through it. We have not lost because of it, but we have leveraged it. And we believe that in many of the differences that couples can encounter, that you can experience the same. Now, this is not to say that our journey has been perfect when we find ourselves at places of difference, but you don't have to let that thing undermine your love.
So, Adrian, what are some of the other differences that we have? That could cause problems, but we have learned to live through it. I mean, I think besides the football thing, Adrian is extremely extroverted. He's like if you follow disc profiles or personal, I mean, he is like the extrovert of extroverts. Whereas I have learned to be extroverted, but I'm really an introvert. So Adrian can people all day and all night. I can people for about 2 hours and then I'm done. And it could cause problems. I mean, I used to get kind of resentful because I'm like, okay, enough. Let's reel it in. Can we go home now? I remember like when we first got married and you were starting into ministry, and after you had led praise and worship and all of that, and you just wanted to make your rounds and a lot of times he would just leave me right there because I was done for the moment.
Yeah. So let me say this to you. I didn't know this about my wife at first in terms of the personality type and what comes along with that personality type, and how um, she gets fatigued with being social. And it just did not compute to me, and it wasn't necessarily something that I was learned about, not just about her, but it wasn't something that I was knowledgeable of in terms of the different personality um, types and what demands and what preferences and what struggles they have. And so that difference could have very well undermined our relationship far worse than it did. I thought that she was strange because check this out. On our honeymoon, she wanted to come home early. And it was odd to me, but this I later found out was kind of sort of attached to, associated with her personality type. Now, granted, we had a bump in there,
Yeah.
but I don't think that was really what that was about. I think it was more her personality than anything.
Yeah.
Because she continued to be that way. We would go on vacation and
Like, that's it. That's
and I'm
enough.
like,
Let's go.
what are you talking about? You're ready to go. I'm just getting into a relax mode and you're trying to break out and go back home. It just was a point of significant contention such that it could have been devastation. But God.
But God, it's true.
So what would you add to that?
I own it. But I think I've done better. So now that when I am at that place where I'm starting to get antsy because I just want to be home with my family, I will, um, I've learned how to compromise, right?
Yeah, you've learned how to compromise, and yet you can still get tense.
Yeah.
And I think this is where those of you who may not be, um, who may not have thought positively about medication mitigation, you, you, you need to really
What if I didn't
start
want them to
looking.
know that?
You really need to start checking out WebMD and figure out what are some of the signs and some of the traits that you need to be looking
But
for.
Adrian, that is such a good point.
It is.
No, I
Go
want to
ahead.
go
Go
there
ahead.
here,
Go
and I
ahead.
know we might not have, and we can come back to this. But for years, I would tell my husband, he couldn't understand that it was kind of like my personality type. And I would say, Adrian, I think I need help
Mhm.
because some of my issues were even kind of weird to me. But I would always, so long story short, I realized that I'm on the spectrum, right?
Mhm.
I have, but I used to tell him that all the time. I said, Aiden, something's not right with me. Like I get tense, I get like stressed out, I get antisocial. I'm like all over the place, and then I can't control my mouth and blah 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 blah. And I used to tell him something was wrong with me. Shani, no, you're fine, you're perfect, blah blah blah. Well, he wouldn't say perfect, but like nothing's wrong with you, babe. You just need to loosen up some. And it finally, I talked to the right doctor because I didn't know if I was dyslexic. I didn't know if I was just overly anxious, blah, blah, blah. And I finally got a diagnosis that I was on the spectrum. And the doctor gave me a book to let Adrian read and it happened because I was getting a diagnosis for my daughter. Long story short, he read the book and apologized to me because he did not realize that it was a chemical imbalance. Let's call it that. It's more of a chemical imbalance. And now I can control it with food and right supplements and things like that. But it was causing so much contention because some of the things he wanted me to change, I couldn't change until I knew what was behind it.
Right. So what we realize is that we can definitely attribute the fact that a majority of couples are in relationships built upon shared values, beliefs, and goals, and interests. But as we consider the fact that many have fallen in love probably because of similarities and common things and shared interests, we had this Aggie thing going on and so on and so forth, right? But you will find that there's also some things that are significantly different concerning you and your mate, oftentimes, more often than not. And we've realized that some people let those differences be the demise of the relationship. And we've come tonight to say that you can overcome those differences. You need to make a decision to, again, leverage them and not lose because of them.
Yeah, and I think our differences have made us actually very strong, much, much stronger. They've made us, a lot of people call us powerhouse couple, this, that, and that, but it's because we're not exactly alike. Like my husband, give you an example. My husband is a major visionary, like Walt Disney type imagination. But most visionaries don't have the tactical skills
the detail
to get things done. whereas I am a ABC 1, 2, 3 type person. And so we finally learned how to leverage and embrace our differences and to become stronger with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So he thinks it, and I come up with a plan to make it happen, and then we work together, and we don't resent each other for it.
That's the thing.
anymore.
It brings your differences oftentimes can bring a balance into your home, into your business, into your passion pursuing that, if you get stuck in the minor things, you'll miss the major that can be oftentimes be an incredible asset and an incredible strengthening, empowering, because of the distinctions. Because a lot of times you think that you want to be uh, exactly alike, and you don't.
Mhm.
You want to agree, you want to be able to find common ground, but you really need to understand when the Bible says that it wasn't good for man to be alone.
Mhm.
I believe what God was saying there, honey, is that there was something lacking in Adam that could only be added through the addition of Eve,
Of his as a connector.
of his Ezer Kenegdo. Now
Isaiah
you
connector.
cannot say such foreign language
Okay.
and not add a deeper revelation understanding. Come on.
Well, we don't have a lot of time
We
for
don't.
that, but that's the helper, and so many people think that helper was the uh more, I think it's like domestic and all those things that the typical woman did. We'll have to come back and do a whole teaching on that. But it's really to help the man get um, to war and to work for, to help bring vision to pass. And I think where I was going to go with that is like our differences have helped us, you know, have a different view and perspective on things, have opened up our world. I remember when I first met Adrian, he was from New York City. So I was like, oh, he's going to teach me some stuff. And like, he's going to expose me. Cause I had been in North Carolina for most of my life, even though we met when I lived in Atlanta. And I was so excited about the new things he was going to introduce to me. But I think I was able to introduce you just as much, if not more, just because of some of my experiences and, and not just in life, but like in corporate world and things like that. In books, like if you hear Adrian, he's always telling people about a book that I shared with him and things like that he might not have, he probably wouldn't have read on his own.
Yeah.
You get tired of me doing that, probably, but
Well, that's probably more so because of where I am right now, but and all that I have going on. But I love to read, I love to learn. I think therein lies a similarity that we bring, that we're both learners. Therein is a similarity as opposed to a distinction, and when you add that to the very clear distinction that you just talked about, referencing detail oriented versus um, big vision oriented, that is a absolute game winning combination. That so want to ask you, are you able to look in your relationship and be able to dissect it and put the critical pieces together just like that? We talked about the distinction in terms of our strengths and our proclivity towards um, business and uh, entrepreneurial kinds of desires, right? But then still understanding that both of those require that you gain insight and knowledge. And if you had somebody who doesn't care for growing, and you're trying to live and they want to stay stagnant and you wanting to grow, that's a massive difference that could very well be tragic, right? That could be tragic. So as much as we're talking about leveraging as opposed to losing, certain kinds of differences can really be problematic. So, you know, if you're able to put in the comments, if you want us to speak to differences, if that could be beneficial, if you want our response or input on some kinds of differences that there may be, if we're what our opinion is of them, we'll gladly respond to it as best we can. So, what else did you want to touch on?
Well, let's talk about some of the types of differences really quickly where that could bring loss.
Okay.
Differences in faith and where you want to go in your faith. Like if one is comfortable and one is not. Money.
Ah,
Like me and Adrian, okay, I would say he likes to spend more money than me.
she loves to walk in that fallacy, in that total delusion.
He like I spend a lot of money on little things, but the little adds up. But he likes to spend money on big things, like the time you just came home with the GL550, not GL550, S550. You know,
that's not even comparable. That's not even.
So I might like to take the kids out for ice cream every day for the weekend.
Yeah, I figured you would try that.
He comes back with
I figured you would try
S550. I mean, it's different, right?
Well, it's
the
amazing,
same, but very different. Right?
In one purchase out of the year is not going to come close to 300 out of the 365 days of the year.
If it's a S550. Okay. So and
everybody needs a car.
So those are, you know, we've just had to learn. Yes, like I would come home, like Amazon. I know the Amazon drivers on the
butcher knows her, and it's not Bob the butcher.
No, his name is Thomas.
Thomas. See that first name basis. The folks at Macy's know her by name. The Amazon, UPS, and postal worker, delivery guy, all of them know. Why? Because every day, this is pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, everybody does not, you know, even at the post office.
Those differences in spending could cause major issues. Okay.
Hello.
Okay. So I guess we should cut it off right there so we can deal with this right after. Off camera.
Listen, this is an example of how grace and mercy has kept us, because mercy does not allow you to get what you deserve, and grace empowers you to get something that you don't deserve, right? And sometimes you know, with the marriage of those two, they're different. There is a keeping capacity, and grace and mercy has abounded for us in this monetary place.
And so maybe one day we'll talk about how to compromise and give and take, because I think we do that well.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah. It started out rocky.
Very. But
we found middle ground and we found stability, and we're well. We're well. You know, I think that that's a key point too, that as we talked about grace and mercy, realizing that in the case of differences, you're going to need to have a healthy capacity for compromise.
And forgiveness.
Absolutely.
Because it took me about 3 months to forgive that car purchase.
I never knew that.
You just don't remember. But that's grace that he doesn't. Oh, and let's not talk about the dogs. Let's not talk about the animals.
I thought that when we were trying to prepare, that they would have come up a lot sooner in the conversation than at this later stage. Do you want to mention that?
Well, if you followed us back in 2000, and what year was that when Domino came? 2013, when Adrian went out on Christmas Day and purchased an animal, and I'm not an animal person. And we had always made a decision we would have humans and not animals.
No, we didn't make that decision together. That was a directive.
Correct. So that was
a difference. It was
that
an
was
issue.
decided.
It was a
I was
difference.
like, I give you humans, you don't give me animals.
But then one of the humans that she gave me really cornered me, as all of the humans that she's been blessing me with had corporately agreed that the house just needed a dog. And because my girls have been so wonderful, they've all been phenomenal students. We've never had to go to the courtroom. We've made it to the emergency room a few times, but you know, they've been wonderful. And she just, Daddy, please, Daddy, I promise. And I went out in the spirit of being a good dad, and it was before Christmas Day. I just brought him home Christmas Day. And he's been with us ever since. And now
I don't think you've ever repented for that.
That's not true. No,
No, I
Shonda,
don't
you
think
were
you've
so
ever
cruel.
repented for
How do you think I didn't repent? Your father
You didn't
was
repent
here.
to me.
I did.
Not
And see,
to
this
me,
is
no.
this is what you call selective recall. And your dad was
Probably
here,
because of
and
the
he was
trauma.
jabbing me. He was like, "Ooh, I believe you in trouble."
But anyway.
I wanted him to choke on his breakfast sausage.
But anyway, that's what a lot of forgiveness.
But
A lot of forgiveness.
tell them what you think of the dogs today. What do you say about the dogs today?
I probably still need a little deliverance because I still get resentful. I still get resentful. I cook I cook for the dogs. The dogs don't even eat dog food, people. I cook for the dogs. Until I hurt my Achilles, I was walking the dogs, and they might be the reason why I have a pulled Achilles. I mean, just a lot. And
All right, this is where
we
we
need to
getting some
go.
extra
Yeah.
hot sauce right here. This is, I don't know if you saw
Okay,
when
that's
it shifted, but this is all extra right now.
No.
Because if
There
you
are
were to
moments.
take the dogs out of the equation, not only will the children be distraught, but so would this one be distraught. And so it's added a blessing to her life. And then one day, listen now, Adrian, I think Victoria needs a puppy for herself. You know, Domino doesn't play with her like he played with the other kids. And so you see, she clearly came into a new sense of awareness and appreciation. So that's where the differences can find a middle ground. And we found it. And the house has been stretched because of it. The relationship has been strengthened by the stretching.
That's good.
And we're here testifying of it. Hopefully that somebody is going to be encouraged, empowered, and motivated to embrace the difference, come together through compromise, and be strengthened in spite of the differences.
And forgives.
And
70 times 7.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Per day. I think they forgot that in the translation.
I mean,
70 times 7 daily.
470 times on one issue.
Them dogs in that car. All right, y'all.
On one issue.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in.
Because I'm such a coverer, I'm not going to tell you of some of the things that forgiveness has been required. I'm just going to continue to Be strong, stand tall. Pray for the God for the blessing of God to remain not only on us, because here we are having endured. We know for a fact that many of you are right there, able to endure as well. And we hope that you will not allow the differences to destroy, to devastate your love.
Mhm.
And may your love overcome everything, as scripture says. Love overcomes everything when we find the way to compromise and allow love to be what God intended it to be. So I hope that we said something that will encourage you, if not something that made you laugh. Bless y'all.
Good night.
Have a good night. We'll see you next week. Same time, same channel. Take care.